So there was an article in Variety that came out recently, and they were talking about how studios are kind of combating what they're calling toxic fandom. And I thought that the article was presenting some very, I don't want to say interesting because it's not a real word. I think.
Wait, what do you mean interesting is not a real word?
Like, it's just like, oh, that's interesting. It doesn't actually, like it just forces you to not use your brain. You can just be like, no, it's interesting.
Okay, yeah, I get what you mean.
I thought they were bringing up a lot of
interesting.
They were bringing up a lot of points that I agree with and disagree with, and I kind of want to get into it. So basically, they were touching on how at the beginning of the article they were talking about how the actress that plays May and Osha from The Acolyte wasn't surprised that the show had been canceled. Because ever since 2020 or near so when it got announced, and maybe when they got hired as an actor, that they were, receiving all these, this negativity and threats and yada, yada, yada. And it basically is, went back to like, let's talk about toxic fandom and basically how review bombing really took off with I think it was The Last Jedi, and how it's gone on to, people review bombing The Boys and The Marvels and House of the Dragon, and The Last of Us, where, the House of the Dragon had 2 female characters kissing, and then there was a Last of Us episode featuring a gay couple.
Right.
And so all of that there, I vehemently hate that there's become this truly terrible toxic portion of fandom.
Basically whenever there's a big show or movie that comes out and there's anything that's homoerotic or with a minority, everyone's like, oh, I fucking hate this. And it's that is the worst. And the fact that, and I don't think this is the only reason they're forming these groups to combat toxic fandom, but the fact that they would hear those people's input on things like that really does bother me, because it's so not needed, because there's such a loud minority that side,
Right. So basically, they are talking about ahead of some of the studios that at least decided that they would talk about it on the article.
Right.
We're basically saying we have tried a bunch of different tactics. One strategy is basically don't respond, don't give them oxygen, and they've only been lifting up and responding to positive reactions and thoughts.
Right.
But yeah, so basically their idea is let's bring in these super fans, is I think what they were calling them.
Yep.
And the kind of focus groups of such. And this is where I get torn about. They want to bring them in either hopefully while they're in the stage
the editing
of
process, right?
Well, the producing the ideas, or at least some process, because they talk about sometimes we've been able to bring them in when there's been enough time to change something, and then we change something. I have 2 thoughts on it. Well, maybe 2 or 3. One, if the people that these studios are bringing in to give input as to whether they should do something or not, and we're basing them off of the people who are review bombing because 2 gay characters or a minority character does something or kisses.
Right.
Terrible idea. Horrible idea. Why would you do that? But I don't know if that's necessary. Hopefully it's not the case.
Right.
What I'm hoping it is that there, as much as there's the terrible side of the review bombing, there is, and we are part of it, where it's no, legitly, you're doing terrible things to the things we love.
Yeah.
And partially I'm like, this could be a good idea. It really depends on who you're asking, because when you like for Boba Fett, for example, you only had to make him the most badass person. That was your only job.
You did the opposite, right?
And you destroyed that character. I cannot stand to look at Boba Fett sometimes after what they did.
I agreed. And here's the thing, like I've like that like if they were to have feedback on that kind of stuff, that's what I've been arguing for years. I'm like, you have all of these people, like you know where their opinions are. Like bring in a group and have them consult on this fandom that they care so much about.
Yes.
And then you can go into a better spot in writing or an entirely different direction if you know the overall majority is not going to be happy with it. And like I would say the same about Acolyte. I don't think that was a product of like that being canceled. I don't think it's a product of like toxic fandom. Yeah. I think there was a definitely a loud minority that were a toxic fandom in that, but like the Acolyte was just bad. And like if people were brought in to help write the show in a better way, I think that would have really benefited it. Yeah. And
that's what they go into here. Like like John Van Sitters, who is a Star Trek brand development head or vice president since like the 1990s, was quoted, "The number of people who live and die on their franchises are very, very few. And then those who come after things that they espouse to love with venom are a really, really tiny subset of that already smaller subset of fandom. It's just easier to see it now." And the thing that worries me about the article in most of this never talks about that there are fans who are upset because you have people making things, Disney, for example, making things like Star Wars, like Marvel, who don't actually, doesn't feel like they actually care about what they're making, and they're just like half-assing it, or like have some sort of, I don't know, maybe yes, they do want to focus more on a female character, but like that is the only thing that it seems like they cared about, and they just want, and then they tell a story that's like just bad. And I don't give a shit, like, have a female character. I like Rey. I think Rey is just in terrible fucking movies.
I mean, I didn't think the character Rey was bad until the really horrible movie that came out at the end.
Because they wrote just dribble, like just shit. Yeah. And so, but the article only kind of goes into the toxicness of like, well, these people are going to get mad if we have a black person in there. So like we should listen. Maybe what they're quoting when they're saying like, they will just tell us if you do that, fans are going to retaliate.
Like at that point, I mean, wouldn't you just look at those people as like, well, you're just, I mean, aren't you racist at that point? Like if you're telling me that like, oh, well, fans are not going to react well to this black character. I'm like, well, like there's almost no world where like a minority couldn't exist in. Like you would have to create something so specific for that to be the case.
And I'm really hoping that they're talking about like what we're trying to say, which is like, look, if you make Boba Fett chase around a droid in Jabba's old kitchen and say, I am Boba Fett, we're going to hate it.
If you have Fennec Shan speaking for him the whole time and him, you know, bending to the will of every other opinion, then everyone's going to hate it. Right.
And if you have him get into his ship and be like, I don't know where my armor is. Maybe I should go back to the place where I got sucked into a Sarlacc pit and go look for it.
Which then wasn't there. But
because he had it on him when he got out of it.
Right.
And then is very surprised when the monster grabs his ship and tries to kill him again. We're not going to like it.
No, we won't. Yeah, and maybe Mandalorian season 3 could have been fixed in that way. Like maybe you know,
if you have Jack Black just play Jack Black in a Star Wars show and have Lizzo just be Lizzo, yeah, we're not probably going to be into it as much.
Or maybe somebody could have told Disney that if you bring back Grogu, people won't be happy that you just trashed the ending of Mandalorian season 2. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't. And the other thing is, I don't think fans are always right. You know,
sure.
I think that, you know, it's like, okay, we can take that suggestion and then do with what we will.
Right.
But I don't know. Part of me, I'm like, look, if this is, I feel like I'm just concerned that they quoted all of this like, well, we hated Captain Marvel and review bombed it in 2019. Not me, but other people.
Yeah.
When it was just a bunch of most likely guys just being upset that there is a female superhero. An all-female
superhero team, right?
Well, I'm just going back to 2019 with Captain Marvel.
Oh, with Captain Marvel. Yeah, that was a really weird review bombing. Yeah.
It's because they just hated women.
Yeah, I mean, feel like that was it. I mean, well, because like I don't think the movie had really come out at that point. So like,
no, they just started review bombing it.
Yeah, they just review bombed it without even seeing it.
Or like The Boys is like woke garbage.
Right.
And that's been happening for a minute. And like,
yeah, but like that's not my problems with like season 4 of The Boys. So like I'm hoping they don't like scale back on that kind of like, because I think the political commentary is good, like in The Boys. I don't think it's bad.
Right. Yeah, and like ideally, yeah, like you said, it would be nice to have fans a part of the creation process, people who really care about the thing.
Right.
But if we're talking about fans that are like known to like review bomb shit like in the past
and then lead to toxic fandom, then yeah, why would you give them a voice? I don't understand that.
Just so you can avoid the pushback or to review. Like I'm like, I don't know, like like you could stop it. Like if you just did everything that they wanted, you could stop it. Maybe unless they find something else to be upset about. But like at that point, you are bending all of your choices to a very small subset of people who are very small-minded and potentially or are, you know, hateful
racist
people.
And sexist and
And your shows are just going to be like white cis people doing white cis people things. And, you know, it'll stay that way until you try to change it, then they'll get mad at you again, you know?
Right. Yeah, it'll be a never-ending cycle. Yeah. So, yeah, let's not give in to those people. Let's just give in to the fans who really care and really care about changing things that we kind of complained about here.
Yeah, I think it should be like, look, just as long as it's story-based, take that. Take the story-based or the lore-based, like, critiques and just that's it. Everything else, you know, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter who the character is, what they look. Yeah, for the most part, it doesn't matter what they look like. Doesn't matter where they come from, how they talk, whatever the fuck. Just focus on like, who is Boba Fett? At the core of it. This whole has just been this has just been a way for me to
vent about Boba Fett.
To vent about Boba Fett because I fucking hate that show.
It's bad. It's bad. And it's why I skipped the first 4 episodes when watching it this past time. So Yep.
At that point it's just Mandalorian 2.5.
Yeah, I mean that's the only reason I go to it at this point.
Yeah.
Because those I mean episodes 6 or 5 and 6, they're really good.
They are good.
Yeah. I totally we couldn't be on more on the same page. Yeah.